Your Creative Push, episode 301.
Anybody can do it. Like, if you're going to say, I can't do it, you're the only thing standing between you and the success. You are your own worst enemy.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngmin Brown, and my guest today is Sara Fabel. Sara is a Finnish model, illustrator, tattoo artist, and actress, currently residing in Los Angeles, California, and she comes on the show today for a very inspiring episode for tattoo artists and all creative people alike. She tells us about her creative journey and how she started out being a teacher and the path that she took to making her first tattoo and then working very hard to get to the place that she is today. She talks about how she deals with having a very large following, and how that can sometimes negatively affect her relationships, and how she tries to only work and surround herself with people who are good people. She talks about the difference between highbrow and lowbrow art in terms of social media followers, and the notion of ego and how toxic it can be, and how some A-list tattooers can abuse their power. Sara discusses how a tattoo is not just a piece of art on your body and all of the other things that go along with getting a tattoo and the experience of getting a tattoo and the importance of tapping into other people's energy. Sara also talks about doing collaborations, specifically with Megan Jean Morris for this amazing piece that they did together that you definitely have to check out. And finally, Sara talks about how young artists should be prepared to be comfortable being broke when they are starting their careers, and also how to not let any of those negative emotions attached to that get into your art. I had a great time talking with Sara. She has a great energy as well as a really cool accent. So I know this is going to inspire you regardless of your creative passion. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy my inspiring conversation with Sara Fabel. Sara, welcome to Your Creative Push.
Yeah, yay!
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 Thank you so much for being here. And I always like to give my guests the opportunity to kind of tell us your basic creative bio, if you will, sort of how you got to the point you are today.
So I was actually a primary school teacher, and I went to university in Helsinki called University of Art and Design. And it's very much like one of the top art universities in the world, and studied there, became a teacher, became an art teacher. And then I moved to Australia and just kind of started tattooing. And ever since, instead of enhancing careers, I've been ruining them by tattooing people.
Well, good for you for contributing to that. So how did you initially first get into, because that's a pretty big leap going from a teacher to doing your first tattoo. So can you fill in the gaps there? Like, what led you to that point where you did that first tattoo?
I think it was that I was also always tattooed. Even though I was teaching, I was very heavily tattooed. And it actually helped me because I was in a very poor area, and we had a lot of kids with really severe issues with behavior and aggression, and being heavily tattooed actually was really good because I had no problems with my kids and they were amazing. I loved it. But when I moved to Australia, I had issues getting my teaching license, and I just ended up doing graphic designing and doing art in general. And then through multiple very random situations, I just ended up tattooing. I guess I've always kind of doodled on myself because it saved money to kind of ruin yourself instead of paying somebody else to do that. And then it just made sense to get an apprenticeship and start doing it full time. Yeah.
And what was the experience like of doing your first tattoo? Because I imagine that's, like you said, doing it on yourself is one thing, but then somebody kind of trusting their body to you. What was that experience like the first time?
It still is to this day horrible, and it's
just scary,
stressful, and you're just like, oh my God, what am I doing? But it was more apparent, obviously, when you start up and you really go home and you just do the like hot shower crying on the floor and you're like, oh my God, what did I just do? But it kind of gets better. And then you're just like, I just kind of just fuck up for a profession now. So yeah, I don't take my job, like I love my job and I take it very seriously and I want to make everybody really happy. But it's also, I think it's one of the like most ridiculous jobs in the entire world. So I don't really take it too seriously. I mean, like I put doodles on people that stay on them permanently. Like that's pretty stupid.
Right. And I guess all art is kind of stupid because it is just stuff that comes out of your head and like, you know, sometimes you get money for it.
Yeah.
So I guess it's like one of those things that you have to kind of get past. How do you get past that?
I just love it. It's like I live and breathe tattooing and I love it so much. Like I'm not really active in the tattoo community, so I'm kind of on my own. And because of that, my clientele is very specific. And because of my clientele, I love it so much that I think 99% of my enjoyment in my work comes because of the people I get to work with. So.
Right. And well, do you miss the teaching at all?
Yes and no. I miss working with kids, but I don't miss the horrible pay and the horrible parents.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about like getting, I mean, you have a pretty big social media following and things took off for you, and that adds a whole new layer to what it is to kind of be an artist, because now you have so many eyeballs on you, so many people looking at you. I'm sure there's haters, there's random comments and stuff. So like, what has that experience been like, and how do you kind of deal with some of the negative aspects of it?
Funny enough, it doesn't really affect my career per se, but it affects my personal life. Like dating is absolutely impossible. And yeah, it's like when you have that, there's two things that guys will want from you. It's either you to tattoo them for free or your money. And I always end up being the sugar mama to everybody. And I'm like, I made it a conscious thing where I do not date anybody who's tattooed or in the industry anymore, because it's just unfortunately having that much of a social media following, it does make you vulnerable for people that want to use you for it. Like, good example, you'll date somebody and within the first week, they're like, you should promote me on Instagram. And you're like, well,
bye.
This is what the whole thing was about. Great. So
right.
It doesn't affect my career. It gives me more clientele, but it more has a negative impact on personal life.
For sure. And how about like, you know, finding opportunities or collaborations or people that reach out to you, not necessarily for a relationship or to get promotion on Instagram and stuff like that. How do you weed out the people that genuinely want to, you know, help out or be helped or working together in a genuine way, as opposed to people that are obviously just trying to use you and get what they want? I'm
such a hermit that normally you need to meet me in person before I want to work with you. And I don't really meet people in person ever. So it never really happens. What I've noticed, the really, really funny part about social media is the fact that people think that more following you have, better you are. And that doesn't really go one-to-one, nor does your income to your social media following come one-to-one. But people have this very twisted illusion that more people know of you and more people follow you, you must be better and more established in your career, and that is absolutely not true. You see some of the worst tattoo artists have unbelievable following and be completely booked for years ahead just because of that hype behind the social media. And I'm very lucky to have the following I have, where I think a lot of the following actually came from years ago when I did modeling and TV, and then that following kind of stayed on for my tattooing. And that's really cool, because then I get all these people that say they've been following me for like 6 years And then they found out I was tattooing and they're super excited to get a tattoo from me. But going to the collaboration thing, I do collaborate with people, but to me, I've made an actual conscious effort to only work with people that I feel are morally nice. Like, I feel like so many people want to separate the art and the artist, and you have these like people in media that are absolute horrible, zero morals, like take advantage of others, but they're really good, and people still want to buy their products and use their services even though they know that they're not doing any good for the industry or the society. So I've made a conscious effort on only working with people that I feel are on a really good moral high ground and are talented. So I would rather push people higher up in their career because they're a good person than try and leech onto somebody else's success. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. And on the flip side too, when you talked about, having a big following doesn't necessarily mean you're the best artist or that you make the most income. On the flip side of that, like I always try to encourage people that, just because you don't have a big following, that doesn't make you not a good artist or not have talent or not mean that you can't have future success. And social media is like one of those weird things where, the numbers aren't always, like you said, they don't correlate with talent or success or how nice a person is or anything like that. So almost ignoring those numbers is a pretty important thing to do, and instead try to get down to the art and who the artist is as a person.
And I feel like there's a very big difference whether you have a lowbrow or medium-brow art versus highbrow art. Because if you look at people that do highbrow art that sell for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, they don't normally even have an Instagram. And if they do, it'll be like 200 to 600 people on it. But those people are the most successful, most celebrated artists. But they're just not making a huge deal about themselves. But when you get to medium and lowbrow art, like tattooing is in a highbrow art. It is very, very lowbrow art where we rely on our payment based on clients. It's not like I can just tattoo on my own by myself and sell it to somebody. Like I rely on having those customers come here. In that case, when we're dealing with like products or cheaper art, it definitely social media helps, and it's what you need to do. And a lot of the times, like tattoo artists won't even apprentice somebody unless they already have a following, because then having that following makes sure that they're going to be able to bring in the clientele.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you bring up another good point. And I've heard you talk about this before as well. It's like the value that you place in the client. And I think that a lot of artists and tattoo artists or tattooers, they get maybe a sense of that they're above, like they're doing their clients a favor. And it really is like a service industry. So could you maybe talk about that and your opinion on the clients as a canvas, essentially?
Oh, absolutely. I actually did an interview for Inked not too long ago with this other girl called Megan G. Morris, and she's amazing. Just a beautiful person inside and out, and just one of those people I want to work with because her morals are so great. But we were talking about it, how like you get that ego, and it necessarily not only in tattooing, but in anything where you can get fame, so to say, and people get that ego, and it's so toxic. And I wish that those people that have that ego will get knocked on their place, but unfortunately that never happens. And I feel like in tattooing, it's almost like you see these guys like horrible ego, so rude, bordering on like sexual assault on their clients, but they still keep getting bigger because in this industry, being a total pig is almost like a positive thing and like looked up on by other guys because it is a very male-dominated industry. So saying that, I do get a lot of female clients that come to me and they're like, like they tell their stories about getting tattooed by guys, and they're like, it was the worst experience ever. And he was like sexually aggressive and trying to put me in compromising positions. And I felt violated by the end of the tattoo. And they're like, I will never get tattooed by a guy again. And it sucks because there's so many beautiful, amazing gentlemen that respect women and respect their jobs and are professional. But then these like really, really famous like A-lister guys that people line up for years to get tattooed by then use their fame to do shit like that. So it's a very interesting like industry, definitely.
Yeah, it's really scary to see how like that's just a common thread through so many different industries. Like obviously the in Hollywood right now and in sports and just it's really kind of depressing actually to think about, you know, when you get this kind of power and things are kind of ignored, or people give you the permission or just don't put you in your place for kind of misbehaving, it just becomes a norm, and it's just like a very sick thing that's kind of going rampant through the world right now. It's very, very disturbing.
Well, a good example is we have one of these A-lister guys that he'll have a tattoo that's going to take like 6 sessions, and he's tattooed you for 2 sessions. So it's already like kind of established and everybody knows his style, and he's like, okay, no tattoo artist would ever touch that piece and finish it. And then that guy has the power now going, okay, I get to change the premises and the rules of this tattoo by, for example, one story I've heard is the guy went and said, well, if you don't have sex with me, I won't ever finish it.
Mm.
And this actually also happens in like when women get into apprenticeships. It's quite often that the owner will go, well, you will not get a job here unless you perform favors for everybody. And that's another reason why I kind of work on my own is I have had the opportunity to work with like so many amazing people. And there's like a huge list of guys I will straight up recommend to anybody. But unfortunately, unless you're in the tattoo industry and you know these stories, you wouldn't know walking into a store that you're going to get tattooed by somebody who's going to look into exploiting you.
Oh, man.
It's a very dark turn.
It's okay, though, because, I mean, it's really important to talk about these things and to, like, bring them out. But the shittiest part about that story is that, you know, okay, fine, like, there's this ultimatum basically that is given, and now not only is it a terrible thing to do, but now that piece of art that's on your body is going to forever have that terrible memory with it. It's so disgusting to not just like to as a human being, but just as like an artist, like to what art is, you know?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I am not really spiritual or religious, but I like using the term energy because it kind of sums up what I'm trying to talk now. But like transferring of energies, like you get a good vibe of a person. Like I don't know what the vibe is and what does it consist of, but if you have a client and you can provide them the best ever experience getting tattooed, the tattoo itself might not be the most ultimate best tattoo in the entire world. But when they look at that tattoo, they remember the good energy, they remember the good positive memory of the tattoo and the conversations you've had. And that tattoo starts signifying so much more than it originally did. And I think that is the beauty of tattooing is on top of you creating a piece, you're creating a memory or potentially something that is very healing. Because I deal with a lot of people with PTSD and depression and mental disorders. And that's one of the reasons why I do work alone is I talk a lot about like very like hard issues. And a lot of the times the clients end up saying it's like having that conversation and kind of finding ways to help themselves. And every time they look at that tattoo, they remember that conversation and it gives them that little extra oomph to kind of keep going. And I think so it's not just about tattooing. It's also about like the human connection and helping people to heal through body modification.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I absolutely love that because, you know, the reason that, especially with tattoo artists, the client is coming to you because they have an intuition about, not only do they love your art, but they have an intuition about, like you said, your energy, and they feel like there's some connection, a connection that's so deep that they want to actually get this thing permanently on their body. And then obviously that requires an amount, you know, hours of time with this person, with the artist. It's like the most intimate connection that you can make from client to artist. It's not like it's something that you're going to hang up on your wall. It's something that you carry around like on the wall of your body. So I love that thought of, you know, having that session be more than just you making art on that person. It's actually making that connection to their energy to, you know, help through whatever process. And I'm sure it helps you as well.
Yeah, because there's actually a lot of, I wrote a paper and actually debated it in my university about the importance of tattoos in emotional healing. Like, let's say you being a victim of domestic abuse or any kind of abuse, whether you're a male or a female, or let's say somebody's body shamed you, whether you're a male or a female. Like, I've had guys that are naturally very skinny and can't gain muscle, and they say they don't want to wear short sleeve shirts, but now that they have their arms tattooed, they feel so much more comfortable in their body. And they might be like, one of my clients was like in their mid 40s, and he was like, for the first time, I feel okay with my body. And just being able to give that to somebody, because like, instead of going for plastic surgery or anything like that, you're giving like them a memorable piece of art. And for him, it was like one arm was about him and the one other arm was about like a memorial tattoo. And just seeing how much it had impacted his life just made me happy. And then like, imagine being like in an abusive relationship or being abused before, and then somebody else taking control of your body. And by tattooing yourself, you're actually saying, no, I'm choosing to do this to myself. I'm choosing to put this image on myself, and you don't get to dictate how I use my own body. And almost the pain is almost like a gate to go through with that. Is you sit here for like 9 hours in like pain, and then you come out of it and the pain stops and you get to look at that image and you get to remember the conversations had. Then you heal yourself as you're healing the tattoo. So it becomes this whole process that actually doesn't end at the tattoo ending, but it continues as the tattoo heals.
Wow, that was so well put. And I love your mindset about that.
And it's funny because I get a lot of shit from other tattoo artists for thinking this way.
Really?
Yeah.
But like, how can you not have that experience, like as an artist, especially when you have that amount of time? Do some just see it as like a job, as kind of getting through the client for the paycheck? Yeah,
and there's a lot of shops that will let you know when you book in, and they send you that like booking form and stuff, and it says on it, and I've seen this form and I know the shop, and it says very specifically, you are not to talk to the tattoo artist during the tattoo.
What?
And it is very set in stone. Like, you do not communicate. You're there to get a tattoo. They don't give a shit about why you're getting it, what the idea is. This is how it's done. You're coming in, you're paying, I'm tattooing you, you're paying me, fuck off. And that's why there's like almost like two different groups of people in tattooing. There's like Megan Jean is very similar to me, where she wants to like talk to the client and kind of like understand where certain things come from and whatnot. And that's why I like her so much, is because of her similar mindset. But then there's a lot of tattoo artists that when I asked them, I was like, hey, what did that tattoo symbolize to your client? And their exact answer is, why the fuck would I care? It's kind of weird.
So bad. That's so bad. But I mean, but that's why it's good to have, you know, that's why it's good to know your artist and to like have a reason, because of, like you said, that energy and connecting with them.
But it's also like, there's people that need that energy, and they need a tattoo artist that's very attentive and it's more like a healing experience. But then there's people like how I was when I was younger. I would just go, okay, what tattoo shop is the closest to me so I can skip school and go get tattooed? And I didn't care who tattooed me. I didn't care pretty much anything. I just wanted to get tattooed and go. And that happens, and once in a blue moon, I'll get a client like that. It's very rare, but you know, those clients need tattoo artists that don't care either. And it's just a very simple transaction. Like if that's how you want to be as a client or a tattoo artist, good for you. It's not how I am, and I think it resonates in how I portray myself, because I tend to attract people that are very like-minded to me and do want to get tattooed for a particular reason.
Right. Yeah, that other way just feels like prostitution. It's just like just for the act, and I don't know, it should be about falling in love, you know, it should be about making that connection, getting to that energy, but like you said, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Yeah. You know, like there's only so much meaning you can get in a Donald Duck riding a fire truck. And like,
have you done that one before?
No. But you know, when you think about that, It might just be like something fun, or you're really drunk and you just want to get matching tattoos with your friend. Like I have some really stupid tattoos and they're not that special, and it doesn't really matter who did it, but I did have a very specific meaning for myself in those. So it's a really hard thing to say whether one is more correct than the other. It's just like you said, different strokes for different folks, or whatever floats your goat.
I like that. Well, I wanted to get back to Megan Jean Morris, because I saw the collaboration that you two did, and it's amazing. And I was just, how did that come to be? And then what was that experience like? Have you ever like worked with another artist before? How did that happen?
So I've done a couple of collaborations. I collaborated with one of my ex-boyfriends, but he was very horrible and controlling, and it ended up actually being a very like horrible relationship that is another story for another time. But there are people that are very hard to deal with, but Megan, she was so easy to work with, because when you do collaborations, you have to understand that you can't control everything about the other person. And that applies to everything in life. Like how you feel and how you feel things to be the best might not be the same for the other person. And you have to give and take, and you have to like portray your ideas and see what they like about it, and then go back and forth and give space for the other person to be themselves and express themselves in the way they want to express themselves. And I think me and Megan both respected each other, and it was just like such an effortless thing between us. And she's a very, very hardworking woman. And like I said, her work morals and morals in life in general are very similar. So I think we just matched really well. How I actually got to know her was, I don't even know. Like we just went hiking one day. And that was it. Okay.
But then how did you find like the client? Like how did that come to be? Like was that the client's idea? Was that your idea, her idea? Like how did it come to be that way?
So I've tattooed that particular client before, and I've actually done a collaboration on her with this guy called Ryan Murray, who's also, he's a sweetheart. He's one of those guys who would never hurt a fly. I would recommend him any day. He's in Salem, Massachusetts, and just the sweetest human being ever. So I've done a collaboration on her before. So when I posted on Instagram that me and Megan were looking a client to collaborate on, Amanda hit me up and said, hey, I would like to do something and you can do the 2 days on me easy. So perfect. I knew her. I knew Megan. It was 3 women that kind of had an idea about each other, getting together and doodling some stuff on her.
Oh, much better than doodling, let me tell you. But congratulations on that, because it was awesome. All your artwork is awesome, but that was really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm hoping to do more collaborations with Megan in the future, because it's really easy to work with her and we're so similar. So I'm doing 2 more collaborations soon. One with this girl called Pony Wave, and she's in Los Angeles too. And another one with Corey Devine, who I used to work with, and he's a sweetheart too. So I'm really looking forward to those 2 collaborations.
Now, you talked about energy before. What is it like then when you're collaborating and kind of sharing the energy with another artist? And like, how much do you learn by being able to watch them and also being able to see them like work over your work?
So it depends. Like when I worked with Ryan, I was actually kind of going out with him at the time. So it was just like tattooing with somebody you're already like very close with. And with him, our styles are very similar, so I didn't really learn that much. But it was just really fun, and it was fun for the clients. And with Megan, because her style's black and gray, and I do mainly fine line, so I did learn so much from her. It was unbelievable. And she said she learned so much from my line work. So I think that's another reason why I want to work with her again, is just the growth that I experienced in those 2 days is unprecedented to like how much I would be able to learn by working on myself. By myself, I mean.
Right. You also mentioned writing, or at least in school writing and kind of arguing for the meaning of tattooing. And you also on your website had this piece called The Hunt, which was really, as a writer myself, was very, very well written and awesome. How much do you write? And can you explain The Hunt?
I don't write anymore because I feel like I'm in a too good of a place mentally.
So the writing was more of a form of therapy before?
Yes. So I wrote that, and I wrote a bunch of other things, and I was actually looking to create like a little mini coffee table book, or what do you call that thing? I was looking to do something like that, but then, yeah, I think like if I had to write now, it would be all about like kittens and being stuck.
Yeah.
And like, everybody has bad days and everything, but I feel like I'm just not in that mindset. And I feel like if I start writing more stuff like that, even though I love reading it, I feel like also you're pushing yourself to have those feelings. So if you're writing when you're depressed, it's more like therapy. But if you try and write like you write when you are depressed, you're almost inviting that negativity.
Well, you could write in a happy form. You could write about kittens. A new children's book by Sara Fabel coming to you.
Yeah, I actually thought about writing a children's book at one point, but I just think I have like so many things I want to do and like other career ventures that I want to go and do that I just don't have the time anymore. I work like 60, 70 hours a week at the moment. So on top of that, I'm like studying and working. So if you put the studying on top of that, it gets like 80, 90 hours. And I'm like, just don't have the time. I don't even have time to see my friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes it's a good thing, and that's one of the things we try to tackle too on the show is trying to figure out how to find the time. But my question for you is then, what would your advice be for somebody who has a ton of different projects or a ton of different directions that they want to go? They can't maybe find the time to get to all of them or any of them, to kind of narrow it down and to kind of hone in on a path if there is one.
So one thing that I've noticed, especially in tattooing and even in other art, is if you think you're going to be master of all trades, like jack of all trades, you're not going to be master of none. And when you look at people that are the most booked and most celebrated in the tattoo industry or even art in general, they have a very specific style. And it sucks. It really freaking sucks because I want to do it all. I get bored. I don't want to do the same thing all the time. But if you start like shooting to the left and to the right and just like kind of like shooting blindly to all kinds of directions, people are not going to come to you because they don't know what to expect. If you know a person that's really good with flowers and does like perfect job with that, and you want to get a flower tattoo or get a flower painting or whatever, you're going to go to that person that knows how to do great flowers. You're not going to go to that person that has a portfolio of like I said, Donald Duck, some script, some portraits. Like, you want to go for a person in tattooing specifically. A lot of the times people that are willing to spend a lot of money, and I mean, like, I feel like I'm like a good price point in my life, but there are people that are like one of the guys I know is $1,750 per hour.
Wow.
And people go to him because when you get tattooed by him, you're going to know it's his tattoo. You're going to know that person got tattooed by this person who's super freaking expensive and really sought after. But nobody who wants to spend, let's say, 10 grand on a tattoo, they don't want to just go to a random person that tattoos whatever, because they also want to have that brand. And it's the same as you don't want to pay $10,000 for a handbag that is non-brand, but you don't have that same issue paying like a special edition Louis Vuitton with Supreme bag, because when you go out of that door and you have that $10,000 bag that screams branding, everybody who sees you are going to react to the brand you are wearing, whether it's a tattoo or clothing or art. They're going to react to that differently. Like, if you're wanting to do it all, just remember that you're never going to get paid well. If you're willing to get very specific, you're going to cut out 90% of the market, but that 10% is willing to invest in you more.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things that people get caught up on is, wanting to please everybody. And you're never going to please everybody. So it really is, I think, as easy as focusing in on, kind of like we were talking about before, the thing that brings you that energy, the thing that you feel you connect with the most, just continuing to work on that and to dig deep as opposed to spreading yourself too thin, so that, the audience that does find you is going to be very enthusiastic about what you do.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the difference between, like, let's say a graphic artist or just a tattooist versus an artist and a tattoo artist, is you're more willing to say no to jobs because you're more willing to be broke and poor while you go towards that one goal and that one very specific design language. But you're willing to not take those jobs and not get paid because you want to stay true to what you want to do. And that was the hardest part in starting tattooing and even moving to the United States. I had a really good following in Australia, but then I moved here, nobody knew me, and nobody knew me locally, and nobody even knew I moved here. So I had to kind of weigh the options of, do I want to take tattoos that I don't really want to take, and then later on that's going to come and bite me in the ass and just make the money, or do I only want to focus in what I want to do, and then those people are bringing in more clients that are going to want the stuff that I really want to do. And I think it's important to be prepared to be really poor when you're an artist, because that time is you working towards the bigger purpose. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and I agree, but do you have any advice for kind of dealing with that reality? Because especially when you're a creative person, especially when you're an artist and you're trying to bring something from within yourself out into the world and hopefully be a beautiful thing, kind of like what you're talking about with your writing, to be okay with, not having money, but also not freaking out, you know what I mean? And not wondering like how you're going to put a roof over your head and food in your belly, and not having those issues and those problems, those real life problems get into your creative process and into your art.
So what I've noticed when I talk to my clients, the younger ones, a lot of the younger clients that I have constantly say that they want to be a tattoo artist too. And then I'll start talking to them about like, okay, well, while I'm tattooing you, I'll tell you what I'm doing so you get an idea of what I'm doing. And then 10 minutes goes past and I look at my client and they're on their phone texting. And I'm like, so you can't even have somebody's giving you a free pass and you can't even shut up for 10 minutes and listen to me when nobody else that I know would literally take your hand and tell you how the industry works. And I'm doing it for free without requiring you to have an apprenticeship with me. And then I tell those people like, oh, I work like 60 hours a week and I'm building my career and I want to get better and I want to make more money on it and I want to get better artistically. So I put in a lot of work and I sacrifice friendships and I don't have a time for a relationship. My art comes first. So what I notice with a lot of people is they want the same level of success, but they don't want to do the work and they don't want to work as much. And they're like, oh, I just want to tattoo 20 hours a week. And I'm like, yes, you can do that, but you're going to be one of those people that does infinity signs in a tattoo shop and literally those, yeah, you get good hourly rates, but you're still going to be making like 20 to 40,000 a year because you're lazy. And with tattooing, with any art, it is, you're nothing until you make it. And until you make it, if you really want to make it, it's a difference whether you want to settle at that $40,000 a year level. That's fine. If you're comfortable with that, do that. But if you want to make a really good living and you want to be successful and you want to be recognized with your career, you're going to have to sacrifice things. You're going to have to sacrifice friendships or relationships or your time off or money that you're going to use on other things. And those things are hard to give up, but you just got to ask how much you really want it. And if you want to be true to your art, get a job that is very mundane and simple to do. Like go work in a Starbucks as a barista and make the income you need to make to live and eat. And then outside that, use every single moment you have of the spare time drawing. Like there were months when I didn't see a single person. I went to my day job, then I went home and drew and got better at drawing and started finding ways to how I wanted to draw. And then the next day I would go for my minimum wage job. And I did that for a long time until I figured out how I want to draw and how my art is. And I was giving up a lot. And that's the problem when people want to get into careers that have very, very high rewards. They don't understand that it's very, very high sacrifices in your own personal life.
Yeah. So often people see the end result, like the finished product of somebody that's been working on an art project for, days, weeks, many, many hours. You see the final result. And I think it's the same thing with, people putting pictures of themselves up. It's like the perfect version of themselves. And so often it's like, it's, so hard to put yourself through that. You have to really want that, whether it's a perfect body or the, like perfectly renovated house or the perfect piece of art. It takes years and years of practice, discipline, and huge amounts of sacrifice. And when people start hearing about that, all they can take is sometimes 10 minutes and they flip on their phone.
Yeah. And that frustrates me because those people are like, oh, you're so skinny. You're so pretty. You're so perfect. You're just so good in drawing. And I'm like, I go to the gym every freaking day. I've had a lot of plastic surgery. My teeth are fake. Everything's fake. I use a lot of Photoshop and I work fuck tons. So no, my body doesn't come this way naturally. My art doesn't come this just straight out of the womb. Like I have to completely be a miserable recluse drawing at home with no friends to get where I am. And it's cool if you have a naturally talent. I don't. Like I don't naturally look or have this talent. I had to work my ass off for it. And I know people that go into tattooing and the first tattoo they do is perfect. Good for them. I wasn't one of those people. And I'm okay. I don't have any shame admitting the amount of work I had to go through with everything to get to the point where I am. Because it just shows that even if you don't have natural talent or beauty or whatever, you can get there. You just need to work for it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it makes you much more appreciative too of like every client that you have, because you realize how much work it took for them to get in your chair, or to want to be in your chair.
Exactly. Because I'm like, if I charge like $2,000 a day, it's like, how many hours did my client have to freaking work in their day job to afford that tattoo? And worst case scenario, they have to fly here and travel here. And I'm like, I better do them justice, because if I don't, like, I wouldn't want to get a product myself and somebody half-ass it. I would get so mad. Like, I grew up poor. I was poor majority of my life. Like, if I put money into something, I expect it to be quality, and I expect to provide that same quality for my clients.
Absolutely. Sara, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on. We always like to finish, though, with what I call the final push. And that's where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today. Perhaps it's somebody that's been in your chair before, somebody that actually sat through the 4 hours of all of your advice and listened to all of your advice, and just give them your best final words of advice and really push them to pursue their own creative passions, whatever they may be.
Yeah. Well, I believe, and I'm a living example of it, that I was a kid with no friends, being extremely bullied at school, saying that I was the ugliest, most worthless person in the entire planet. And look at me now. Yay! I have like 1 million followers on Facebook and 500,000 on Instagram. Delusional people thinking that I'm pretty and talented. And you know what? Anybody can do it. Like, if you're going to say, I can't do it, you're the only thing standing between you and the success. You are your own worst enemy. And I am my own worst enemy. And there's just going to be times when you have to tell yourself to shut the hell up. And I can do this. And I'll take time, and it'll take a lot of work. And I'm going to cry. And it's going to be horrible. But I can so do this. And that's what I did. And I am so happy I did it.
Yay. Yes. Prove them wrong, and then prove
yourself wrong. Prove yourself wrong. Because everybody's had that one moment in their life when they're like, I will never look like that. I will never be fit. I will never be able to run 10 miles. I will never draw like that person. And all of that is you putting yourself down and being a bully to your own self, instead of going like a good friend should be, and be a good friend for yourself, to yourself, and tell yourself, you know what, buddy, you can do it.
Yes. Sara, well, thank you for being a good friend to us today, for giving us that motivation, for sharing your story, and really giving us that push today. I really, really do appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to have this talk, and that was really fun. And I'm looking forward to listening to myself on your podcast and being really awkward, hearing my own voice in a way that it doesn't sound inside my own head.
Oh, well, don't worry. You can do it.
I can do it.
You can do it. And then for anybody that wants to find Sara, you can head to her website, sarafabel.com, SARAFABEL.com. On Instagram, she is Sara Fabel. And we'll have everything linked up at today's show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/Sara Fabel. Sara, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My thanks once again to Sara for coming on the show. I wanted to go back to that idea that Sara mentioned about getting specific, about being willing to cut out 90% of the market, because it is that 10% that's willing to invest in you more. It's a scary thing to do, to be willing to not appeal to every single person that's going to check out your stuff. But it's one of those things where once you do get specific, once you do make that commitment to niche down, however you want to say it, that's when you start feeling really good about your art. That's when you really get into that zone and you're able to create from yourself, from your heart, from your soul, because that is you tapping into the thing that is specific to you and not caring about the other people that aren't going to get it. It's caring about those 10%, that smaller number of people that totally get you, that are totally willing to go on the ride, to maybe pay the extra dollar and be totally stoked to be your diehard fans. It's the same thing for building an audience. Don't worry about those people that don't get what you do. Instead, focus on attracting those that will get you more. On our next episode, we have Mike Lowrey. Mike is an artist and illustrator living in Atlanta, Georgia, and his work has been seen on everything from greeting cards to children's books to gallery walls all over the world. And he comes on the show next week for one of the funniest and most inspiring conversations that I've had in a long time. I totally dig his sense of humor, but also, as I said, super inspiring. If you want to check out Mike, you can head to his website, mikelowrey.com, Lowrey, or on Instagram, Tumblr, or everywhere else. He is Mike Lowrey Studios, and we'll have that all linked up in today's show notes page as well, with everything we talked about today with Sara at yourcreativepush.com/301. But that is all I've got for you today, so hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done, and we will see you next week if you need that push again. I love you all so much. Go. Keep creating wonderful stuff. Keep sharing it in the Facebook group and everywhere else that you share it. Keep putting it out there and keep getting specific and niching down to the thing that really resonates with you, the thing that your heart is telling you to do. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys next week. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.